Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Conservative Women's Network. Both those of you here in Washington and all of you out all around the world watching this on C-SPAN TV. I want to welcome you all to the November Conservative Women's Network. I am Michelle Easton, president of the Claire Booth Luce Policy Institute, and I'm delighted to be here with Bridget Wagner, our partner for many, many years from the Heritage Foundation in their beautiful room here. We put on Conservative Women's Network together every month for almost 10 years, and what a treat it is to work with you all. Now, before I mention our speaker and introduce her, I want to mention a little something special that happens next month. Those of you who've been coming for a while know that we have a tradition in December, and we have a different kind of speaker. You know, Conservative Women's Network exists to promote our great conservative women leaders. But once a year, around Christmas, we have a special guest, a distinguished gentleman who is a leader in the conservative movement. So I wanted to let you know that in December, on the 8th, we are going to have from the great state of South Carolina, Senator Jim DeMint. Not a token, a special guest for next month. Now, it truly is an honor for me to introduce this month's speaker, Marji Ross, who is here to discuss 7 surprising secrets of best-selling female authors. Marji is a leader among leaders in the conservative movement and one of the most respected, visible, and quoted publishers in the book business. Her advice and counsel is valued by many of the most celebrated, powerful, and recognizable names in America. Marji serves as the president of the conservative book publishing house, Regnery, and she's the only person outside of the Regnery family ever to hold that title. Under her strong leadership over the past 12 years, the company has placed 48 of its books on the New York Times bestseller list, an enviable feat in the competitive world of publishing. Recent bestsellers have included Courting Disaster by Mark Thiessen and Culture of Corruption by Michelle Malkin. Regnery by far has the highest batting average of New York Times bestsellers published, per title published by any publisher. Marjorie graduated from Dartmouth College with a BA in English, and she earned her master's in journalism from American University. She's married, has 3 bright and beautiful daughters. 2 are in college, and 1 is in high school. In 2005, the Claire Booth Luce Policy Institute presented Marji with our Woman of the Year Award, and we're also blessed to have Marji as a member of our board of directors. Please join me in welcoming Marji Ross.
Thank you. Well, it's delightful to be here with all of you today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle and Bridget, for hosting. And as Michelle said, it's a wonderful thing for this partnership between Claire Booth Luce and the Heritage Foundation to be bringing together conservative women every month. It's a terrific opportunity for all of us to get together, and I'm delighted to be here. And I'm so happy to see so many smart, young, confident, conservative women in the audience today. It gives me hope for the future of the country. And in fact, that's part of what I want to talk to you about today, the future of the country. And the important role that I think all of us, and I mean everyone here in the auditorium today, the important role we have to play in that. And along the way, I'm going to hopefully share with you some food for thought on how to navigate the worlds of politics and publishing and business and family successfully. And we'll talk a little bit about that word success and what it might actually mean in the context of your career and your family and your future. But first, I probably should explain what I'm doing up here, talking about the future of the country and how I purport to know something about success and family. So let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm Marji Ross, president and publisher of Regnery Publishing, which is, as many of you know, the leading publisher of conservative books in the country. We have been for 65 years when the company was started in Chicago in 1947. Started by Henry Regnery, moved to D.C. in the mid-'80s and taken over by Al Regnery. In those early years, Regnery published some of the seminal works of conservative book publishing, many of which I'm sure you know and I hope you've read, including William F. Buckley's God and Man at Yale, Whittaker Chambers' Witness, Russell Kirk's The Conservative Mind. In 1993, Regnery was acquired by Eagle Publishing, and since then the Regnery Eagle team has built on Regnery's tremendous foundation to become a powerhouse of conservative political bestsellers. I joined the company in 1999, and in the past dozen years, we've published a lot of bestsellers, as you heard, but I'll tell you whom we've published. We've published most of the most influential conservative writers in the country. We've published Ann Coulter, Michelle Malkin, Mark Levin, Mark Stein, David Limbaugh, Dinesh D'Souza, Laura Ingraham, David Horowitz, Ted Nugent, and of course, William F. Buckley, Jr., to name just a few. We've also published many of the most thoughtful and articulate conservative politicians of the last decade, including Newt Gingrich, Bobby Jindal, Mitt Romney, Mike Lee, Denny Hastert, George Allen, J.D. Hayworth, and many more. And of course, I can't forget a handful of books which arguably changed the course of history that Regnery published. I'm thinking of Bernie Goldberg's Bias, Gary Aldrich's Unlimited Access, and John O'Neill's Unfit for Command, which arguably changed the course of an election. And all of which, by the way, were #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Next month, just as a preview, we're adding another powerhouse national figure to the list of authors, hopefully best-selling authors, that Regnery has published, and that's Donald Trump. We're publishing a book by Donald Trump called Time to Get Tough. So I'd love to say that it is the brilliant strategic work of the Regnery team that's made us so successful. Of course, that is a factor. But in the past 12 years, just as important is that in addition to being good at what we do, I think since 1999, maybe at that point in our lives, conservative media was at something of a tipping point. Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, Matt Drudge, all of those were just beginning to gather steam and approach critical mass in the late 90s. So at Regnery, what we did was we leveraged that explosion of conservative media. And what we were trying to do and have tried to do since is to find, shape, promote the best conservative books in the country so that they would be successful. And in this case, that means not only that we could sell millions of copies of books, but also that we would have an impact on the national discourse. I tell you all of this not to blow our own horn, but to remind you that a book publisher, especially a successful book publisher, is a megaphone. We ensure that authors like Donald Trump and Newt Gingrich and Michelle Malkin can leverage their already high profile to really make a lasting impression on millions of Americans. And I think we also help those lesser-known authors, men and women, who are not yet household names, to reach a much broader audience. And I'm often reminded that when you hold a megaphone, you have a special responsibility. I remind you of an iconic megaphone moment when George W. Bush was standing on the rubble of the World Trade Center. And what did he say? He said, "I can hear you," which I thought was a fascinating thing. He recognized what good book publishers, I think, recognize, and good business people, and certainly women recognize, that when you have a megaphone, you have to be a good listener. So I've tried to be a good listener and pay attention to the lessons I've learned from the many authors and businesswomen that I have had the privilege to work with over the years. And I've learned some very interesting things about politics and business. about what is effective and what is ephemeral, and about the many faces of success. So I'll try to share some of those with you. And as I was preparing for this speech and gathering